I was lucky. I grew up never knowing hunger. I had access to a good education. But for many people in this world, that's not an option. And one of the themes, which I was fascinated with when I was writing the story, was what would you do if you didn't have access to those things? Like, what would you do? You see it with in Thailand with the women who are working in sex tourism. A few days ago, we saw it with Chan and Aruni's father, who basically stole antiquities so that their families would have a better life. And today we'll see it with grandmother. She is in Ban Vinai in Thailand, and it's 1976 to 1992. So this is a refugee camp. She raced across the Mekong River. She had bullets grazing by her, and she's made it to safety, which is fantastic news. But when you're in a refugee camp, this brings forth a whole other host of complications. And it begs for the question, what do you do to survive? Thai soldiers met us on the other side. I did not know what I felt. There was so much emotion rolled into my body. The contradictions tore at my heart until chunks of conflict lay at my feet. I was sad to leave my homeland, yet relieved. Victory was bittersweet. I was alive, but all my family was dead. I had no home, and my only possessions were what little I had managed to carry out of the jungle. I had nothing but rags on my body, and I could not breastfeed you, Bao. I was so thankful to the woman whose baby had died during our escape. She offered her breast, but due to poor nutrition, her milk was scarce, and your diet of soft rice was not enough. There were times when I thought it might have been better to have left you pinned under your mother's breast, but I could not leave you. My instinct was to grab you, and I was glad I did. I grabbed you, and I have never let go. You, my dear Bao, you saved me. It was dirty, it was dusty, it was hot. I tried to forget about mountain tops and cool breezes. I tried to forget the breeze's freshness playing in my hair or dancing across my skin where it left traces of red on my cheeks. I used to drink air, gulp it in greedily until I was full. Now I breathed in hot air and it turned my nose black. The air could not dance here. It swam in swirls of orange dust. The dust stuck to my cheeks and lay trapped in the corners of my eyes. I no longer drank in air. I drank the orange dust that sat on my tongue and I could not push it off. I tasted nothingness. If dust fed hunger, we would all be full. In my heart, I was back in Laos, living on top of a mountain. My world was big then. There was no fence to contain me. My new world was flat. Before, we lived in a big valley surrounded by rambling hills, where I used to walk freely. In 1976, in Ban Vinai, I walked on hot dust, assaulted by the smell of excrement and the sound of sadness. My sadness rested inside me, and the sadness of others greeted my ears, whether I walked or hid in my bed. Sadness rode in the orange dust all over the camp, which was fenced in by Thai guards who would not allow us to leave. Hmong eyes did not dare peek out beyond the fence at the world outside. Our curiosity was met by Thai fists and loud voices. We were thankful to be in the camp, yet feared our guardians' firm hands and bodies that forced their way into our women. I thought things that I was ashamed of. I felt things that I was ashamed of. I tried to clear my brain of these impurities, but it would not allow me to do so. Rather, my brain hung on for punishment, serving me with a constant reminder of where I had gone wrong. I knew I could have faltered more. I could have sunk into more deviant behavior. I could have physically hurt someone. I never did, yet there was no comfort in that. For me, thinking bad things was almost as destructive as committing an actual act. At least, when one committed a crime, there was some release. When you kept the crime in your head, it remained in prison. Even at the simplest level, I would have preferred to think of myself as someone who shone during adversity. But that would be a lie. Living in a refugee camp brought out the worst in some people, including me. The perpetual gnawing in my stomach nearly drove me mad. I woke up hungry, I went to bed hungry, and every second in between, I was hungry. I grew accustomed to the hollowness within my stomach. It was the thoughts within my head I could not contend with. I fought with my brain. I knew it was right and what was wrong, but my hunger told me otherwise. It challenged me, told me to do things I did not want to do. But my stomach told me it was okay. I wanted to listen to my stomach. I wanted to make it stop talking. It spoke loudly to me. Some days it was angry. It was an anger that scared me, and I was afraid of what my hands might do. I did not want my stomach to win. It was wrong. My stomach and my brain did not agree. My brain and my stomach fought. I tried to ignore my stomach, and the harder I tried, the louder it spoke. Its voice would discharge into my body, and everything would hurt. One day, my stomach took over my brain. I felt myself weaken. Physically from the hunger, yes, but my spirit weakened too in ways I previously thought not possible. There was one time I behaved terribly. I had always thought of myself as a good person. I had always obeyed the laws of my people and tried to please the spirits. But camp life bred one of my most shameful moments. I saw a small child walking through the camp. She was at most 3 years old. Her face and clothes were covered in layers of filth. I hardly noticed the dirt or the shine in her eyes. What I fixated upon was the handful of rice she held loosely in her hand. My mouth watered and my stomach smiled in anticipation. Suddenly, that rice was the most important thing to me. At that moment was more important than you, Bao. I wanted it. I wanted it like I had never wanted anything before. It would be so easy to walk over and grab it from her tiny, unsuspecting hand. What are you thinking? I asked myself. She was a small child, and she needed the food. But I was an old lady, and I needed the strength. She would not live long. Her body was so skinny. She would die anyway. So it was best if I took the rice from her. She would only cry for a short time. I looked at the way she ate that rice, and I thought to myself, she doesn't even appreciate it. She did not hold it tightly in her hand like it meant something. She was walking. Why did she not just stop and eat it? If she was hungry, she would stop and eat it. She was not hungry, was what I told myself. My feet moved toward her. I could not stop myself. I didn't even try. It looked easy. My fingers curled and uncurled. It was going to be so easy. I wanted that rice. Grab the rice out of her hand and shove it in your mouth. That's all you have to do. Shove it in your mouth and swallow it before anyone can take it from you, my stomach shouted. Look at her, it said. She's laughing. She's not hungry. The rice was within my grasp. I stretched my fingers, ready to grab the rice from her filthy little hand. I was almost in front of her. All I could see was the rice. There was no longer a little girl who held it so carelessly. That rice meant more to me than anything. At that moment, the rice was my life. I wanted it. The camp was hushed. The barracks around me were in a blur, and there were no other people. There was just me, the rice, and the little girl who held it. If she tried to stop me, I would throw her to the ground. I was beside her. I saw the rice, smelled its sweetness. I saw its crumbs on her cheek, the grease on her tiny fingers where she held it. My hand darted to its target and then retreated. On my fingertips were the tiny grains I stole from her cheek. I quickly shoved them in my mouth. The taste hit the roof of my mouth, and I sucked until my entire mouth wrapped itself around the grains. Tears gathered in my eyes and wandered down to rest on my chin. Shame spread over my body as a poisonous rash. My hunger had almost harmed a child, but even more devastating was that I did not save a grain for you, Bao. When my brain came back, my body sunk. I felt as though I was covered in a heap of cow dung. Tomorrow, we'll spend a little more time in the refugee camp with Bao's grandmother. Thank you for listening.